To present Austin Faith Dialogue, brought to you by the Austin Metropolitan Ministries. In the weeks ahead, you will see these and other programs by various denominations.
This is Austin Faith Dialogue, a public affairs program discussing the important crossroad of religion in life, produced by Austin Metropolitan Ministries in cooperation with KTBC TV. Austin Faith Dialogue highlights the interaction of the religious community with the social and cultural issues throughout our area. Now, today's edition of Austin Faith Dialogue.
Welcome to Austin Faith Dialogue. I'm Carl Gronberg, your host for the program. Today we're going to have an exciting program because we're going to talk to some of the most exciting people you can find in the city of Austin, the youth of Austin. 20 teenagers from the city of Austin went to different countries, cultures, to experience the life in those particular communities. And today we're going to ask them what they experienced as they volunteered 8 weeks of their valuable summer time to live out, well, what they believe in, that people are one and that people can share their life together and that people can grow together. I'd like you, the viewers of Austin Faith Dialogue, to meet today Ann Warner. Ann's a student at St. Stephen's, and she's one of the AMIGOS volunteers. And Catherine Otto. Catherine was on the program last year and talked about her experience in Costa Rica. Catherine's a graduate of St. Stephen's, and now she's going to be going off to college. And also David Ryder, another student from St. Stephen's and AMIGOS volunteer. We welcome you three to Austin Faith Dialogue. And Catherine, welcome back. We enjoyed it so much last year when you were on the program telling us about your experience in Costa Rica that we just had to ask you to come back again and tell us about what it was like this summer. Now, you went to Paraguay this past summer,
right.
And as an AMIGOS volunteer, you shared some of the experiences there. And what's going to be interesting today is that, Ann, you went to the village in Costa Rica where Catherine was.
Right.
And, yeah, and then also, David, you were in Mexico.
Yeah, I was in Guanajuato, Mexico.
Let's talk a little bit about AMIGOS. Catherine, tell us a little bit about the history of AMIGOS. Refresh the viewers.
Okay. As Dana told us about last year, it's been around since 1965. So I meet people all the time and in different professions, and they tell me about their experiences with AMIGOS. It's been working in Latin America and South America, Central America, and Mexico since then on health issues and different kind of trying to better the state of sanitation and the health in Latin America, and also interchanging cultures with Latin America.
And the people who go are usually the volunteers, our AMIGOS volunteers are usually young people, teenagers, is that correct?
Yeah.
Where did you first hear? Catherine, where did you hear about AMIGOS? How did it come to your attention? Was it at St. Stephen's?
Yeah, it was. It was during the orientation at St. Stephen's. A girl had just gotten back from Mexico, and she told me about it, and I thought, wow, I have to do this, but I wasn't old enough, so I had to wait a couple of years. A lot like Ann had to do the same thing, it seems like.
Have an incredible video. It's just great. Makes you anyone want to do it.
And Ann, you said you saw about AMIGOS when you were like 13 years of age?
Yeah, when I was about 8th grade, I think. I saw the video at school in my Spanish class, and I knew I wanted to do it right then, but my parents wouldn't let me until I was 17.
And then when you did have the opportunity to go, AMIGOS said you're going to go to Costa Rica. Tell us about the experience when you arrived there this summer. Now, you all spent 8 weeks, is that correct? When you got there, was it kind of an awkward moment? Is that what you said before?
It was a nerve-wracking experience. The first time was terrible. Our town hadn't known that we were coming because we had changed towns at the last minute. And we got there, they had AMIGOS. Catherine had been in the same town that I was in last year. And so they knew what AMIGOS were, but they didn't know we were coming. And they didn't have houses for us to stay in or anything. And so the whole town was just sitting there looking at these 5 gringos and just staring at us. I've never been stared at like that before. Well,
tell me, what happens? How do you break down that they had known Catherine and the AMIGOS volunteers from last summer? Did the leader come out and explain what was happening?
Yeah, we had a leader with us who was speaking to them in Spanish, and then when I figured out that it was the same town that Catherine was in last year, I had something to talk to them about, and I said I knew her, and we had an immediate bond, and from then on it was much easier.
They liked Catherine last year, right?
Yeah, very much.
That's great. David, you went to Mexico, is that correct?
Yes.
How did you hear about AMIGOS?
From Catherine, actually. She talked to me about it, and then she did a little presentation at school, and it just, I never saw the video. I just talked to Catherine, and I talked to other AMIGOS.
David, the experience of becoming an AMIGO volunteer, Why did you decide to give up 8 weeks of your summertime? You guys, you're young people, you're teenagers, you're youth. Why give up valuable summertime when you can be swimming and enjoying summer in Austin, Texas?
Well, I don't feel like I gave up summertime. I feel like I used it better because for me, usually at the end of the summer, when school starts, I feel like I wasted my time away from school. And that was one of the reasons why I joined Amigos, because I didn't want to waste another summer, or feel like I wasted another summer.
And by volunteering those 8 weeks there in Mexico, you didn't waste your time.
Definitely
Because you
not.
told us before we went on the air that you had some interesting challenges when you went to that village.
Yeah.
Tell us about that.
I had a hard village. It was like, usually the generic, or the basic standard Amigos village has already been, it's already excited to get Amigos volunteers, and it's already, you know, ready and willing to help the Amigos volunteers any way they can. But for our town, it was like, we were there and they didn't know we were coming, and they hadn't had Catherine before, and they didn't see why they wanted, you know, why they should need latrines.
You're dealing with public health issues, right? You want to raise the standard of public health awareness in these villages in Mexico, Central America, South America. What then was the receptivity? How did you get them to change their idea, David? Did you just start digging a latrine?
Well, we talked to them. We explained in these charlas, which just means chats. You just go and you talk to the people and you make a presentation, like a health presentation. You explain to them why they need a latrine. And usually they just want a latrine for the same reason they want television. Seriously.
Explain that a little
status.
bit more. Status.
Yeah,
all right.
status. In a culture with, you know, with very, very low technology, it's a good thing to have TV, just because it's a good thing to have a car here.
In your village there in Mexico, then, you experienced people that had televisions but no public health areas, no bathrooms.
That was
bathrooms, but they have televisions.
definitely in Costa Rica. Everyone had a television, just completely regardless. There were three-walled houses with not a fourth wall and no latrine, but if they didn't have electricity, they would have a TV running on a car battery. It was a very strange sensation to see that.
It wasn't the same in Paraguay. Not everyone had because the batteries were hard to come by. I mean, because we didn't have electricity at all. So people would have to go at least 2 hours to charge their batteries. So,
So that they could come back and then play their television.
and watch the soap opera.
Exactly. David, I want to pursue a little bit more about the experience. Youth can make a difference, and that's one of the things that I think Austin Faith Dialogue wants to hold up for our viewers, that you three youth of the Austin community have made a difference by giving some time, 8 weeks of your lives, to going and doing this as Amigo volunteers. What kind of difference do you think you made? You were in a village that wasn't really too maybe open to your suggestions, but through these chats, this conversation you had, were you able to bring about a change in the people there?
I don't know if the chats help so much, considering the reluctance of the people, but I think the latrines are built now. We got the latrines done, and they are going to use the latrines, and that will make a difference, and so that's good.
Catherine, do you receive any monetary remuneration for doing this? Does Amigos pay you?
No, it's the opposite, actually. We have to raise all the money ourselves to go down there. It's funny, we get to our towns and they say, oh, that's like Cuerpo de Paz, Peace Corps. And they say, oh, so the government pays. They pay for everything. And we have to tell them, no, we paid for it all ourselves. You know, and they're kind of surprised when they find out that people in America would want to pay for themselves to go down to their town, and it's really special to them that we would spend our money and our energies. And
see, Catherine, I don't think that's unusual just for those people there. I think it's unusual for the majority of people in our culture, in our society, to think that there are young people like yourselves who will, first of all, go out and raise the money. You have fundraisers to raise the money, put in some of your own money, ask your friends to give some money, and then end up going down there to give 8 weeks of your time. And do you think that's kind of strange?
I don't know. It was definitely worth it. Worth every grapefruit we sold, I think.
yeah.
And that really did make the difference. Also, the people in Costa Rica don't necessarily have a good view of Americans, because the only Americans they see are the tourists and the Americans at the beach. And when they saw us and they met the Amigos from last year, and it just gave them a whole other view of the people in the rest of the world. And it was great.
See, now we're getting to something I think is really important. Whether it was David in his village there in Mexico, or it's in Paraguay or Costa Rica, you're building some relationships through your chats, but through the tangible showing that we're here because we definitely care about what's going on. And you all are not only the future of this country, but the future of the world community also. Catherine, what did you experience? You were there last year in Costa Rica, this year in Paraguay. You've gone twice now. What is the difference from 2 times of going as an Amigos volunteer?
I think that talking to lots of veterans, and people have done it a lot, it's never the same. From one town to another, every community has its individual needs and wants and circumstances. And you know, the first community I went to, there was electricity and running water, and in the second community I went to, there was no electricity or running water. And those are just things on the surface, and you find out that that doesn't make such a difference. It's the culture and the people and the way they interact with each other and with you is very different. In Costa Rica, when I got there, the kids ran up and hugged me, and they wanted to get to know me, and they were very extroverted and outgoing. And Paraguay, the kids, it took weeks to build that relationship and to actually get the kids so they would talk to me and so that they would play with me, and so it was valuable in a different way. It was a slower building process. And
David, are you able to identify with what Catherine is saying?
Yeah, definitely.
In what way?
In my town, the kids and the people at first were very shy, and though the relationship was really slow in building, but it did build though, and it was very rewarding to experience.
They had never had Amigos volunteers in your village before, is that correct?
No, they hadn't.
Yeah. But whereas in the village where, Anne, you were this year and Catherine, you were last year, had there been Amigos volunteers before?
No, they were the first ones.
But they'd had a
Peace Corps worker, yes, for 2 years. That's why they had running water, because she'd put in the running water system there.
See, I think that's just a fascinating insight for the people watching this program, and for you. Now, you got to remember who I am. You know, I'm a pastor and a person of faith, but this is the world we live in, and it's 1993, last year 1992, and these people had just had running water for the last couple of years, and you have grown up, as I have, with running water right there, huh? And to experience that, Anne, what goes on in you when you come as a young person, a student out of Austin, Texas, and experience that type of reality, that type of life?
It's just such a different world. It's hard to explain. Just the way their way of life is so different from ours. It's such a simple life. It's such a pure life almost, because they have so little that just builds the relationships in the family and everything else. And the running water really isn't that significant, I don't think.
Interesting. You cut through all the other stuff, even past the running water, to focus on the relationships of life. Is that what you're saying?
Right.
Yeah. How about those relationships? When you arrived there, it was kind of awkward. Then when they realized who you were and they welcomed you, what would your day be like? Did you go from home to home, or do you stay in one home? Or?
Well, we started off at the beginning, going from house to house, introducing ourselves and talking to the people and getting to know them and practicing our Spanish. Our Spanish was very bad at the beginning. It took a while. But once we got to know everyone, we began working. We worked very hard. We would work maybe from 6 in the morning till about 1 in the afternoon. We would eat lunch, and then we'd go back to work until 4 in the afternoon.
What about the gringo idea of siesta? You know, did you take a nap? Because isn't that the image, the stereotype that we have, is that in the afternoon everybody takes a nap and sleeps and that kind of stuff? You didn't do that? You went right back to work after eating?
Well, the people in Costa Rica really don't take naps. I don't know. In Mexico, did they take siestas? No, never.
Paraguay?
No way. They had to work so hard. I mean, they were trying to plant maíz, the corn. It was time to plant corn, and I mean, they hardly had time. We had trouble getting people to come to our meetings just because they were so busy, because they'd get back from the fields and it was time to molinar, to mill the corn for dinner.
Just simply trying to survive, Catherine,
right,
is that right?
You feel such a grasp on your humanity and on life and death when you're there, because, you know, one day I was talking to one of my friends and I said, "Oh, come with us. We're going to go down and bathe in the stream today." He said, "I can't. I have to plant the corn because I have to eat. I have to live."
Right.
And it never struck me before then how dependent we are on our food and how basic that was.
And I think another great insight that you share with us in this program, but also for you personally, because we've grown up with the idea that you can go to the grocery store and get your food,
right, exactly.
and that it's there in the refrigerator and we can have that when we need it. But there are people brothers and sisters in the human family who it's not that way.
Right.
Life is very fragile, and that if they don't get that seed planted and they don't get a crop, they don't eat.
Right.
It's a very strange sensation when you live right there with the chickens that you eat for lunch. That same chicken that's on your plate, you might have been playing around with it the day before.
It seems so beautiful, though, to be such a part of it and to have your hands on the food and to know that you were part of making it and you know exactly where that food comes from. You might not have the variety. You might not be able to say, oh, this is exactly what I want for dinner. You might be eating the same thing day in and day out, but it seems so pure. It seems, it felt really good to work and come back and know that that was a product of what you've been doing.
I actually thought it tasted better.
Yeah.
When I recognized that one of the chickens was gone, when we had chicken soup, I was like, yeah.
Well, let's talk some more about life in the villages and how that impacted you, and then how people can become a part of Amigos when we come back. Stay with us. We're going to talk more with these teenagers of Austin on their experience of being Amigos volunteers.
Serving Austin means serving you. That has always been the primary goal of Austin Metropolitan Ministries. We are religion in action through the work of these organizations. Each plays a key role in making the capital city a better place to live, but we can't do it alone. Do you have some spare time, talents, or any resources that you can share? If you do, please call AMM at 472-7627 because serving Austin means serving you.
Welcome back to Austin Faith Dialogue. We're talking today with three exciting volunteers, three citizens of this community of ours who volunteered their time with Amigos this past summer, and like Ann and Catherine and David, to continue that conversation with me and with those who are watching Austin Faith Dialogue. We talked a little bit about your parents' reticence when you were a youngster at 13 and they wouldn't let you go to, you were 17. Once you made the decision that you want to be Amigos volunteer, the folks got behind that? And really...
They were definitely behind me. They were worried about me. They were worried about my health when I was down there, that they wouldn't be able to do anything if I got sick, but they were definitely excited.
How about communication with them? Just letter writing? Is that all?
Just letter writing. I had a telephone from my village, but when I called them once and it disconnected about 4 times and I couldn't hear anything.
It wasn't worth it then,
No,
right?
definitely not.
So you did a lot of letter writing.
Right.
And then they sent letters to you? Was the Postal Service good?
No, there was a mail strike the second week I was there and I didn't get any mail after that.
Catherine, how about your family? Their concern. You'd already been through this once last year when you said, I want to go back again. How was the support of the family?
It was amazing. They jumped in and got involved with Amigos, the organization, with helping recruit other volunteers, with helping to raise the money, and they just wanted to help in every way. It seems like the family's a big part of the organization and keeping it going. And there's a big auction, and they helped out. And I think Ann's mom also helped out a lot.
Talk a little bit about that. For Amigos volunteers, you have to, as you mentioned in the program now, you have to raise your own money, so you have auctions and you sell grapefruit and all these types of things. If people want to become a part of Amigos, when does that all happen? Is that in the fall of the year?
Yeah, it's in the fall. November. And they start having meetings every week.
And then people in the community can find out about it through St. Stephen's, or they can contact maybe their church communities, and they would have some information regarding Amigos.
Or Dorothy Cleese.
David, how about you? How did your family react to your idea of being Amigos volunteer?
They liked it. My mom had pressured me, or not pressured me, but had
strike that from the record, right?
She
encouraged.
She had encouraged me to go and do a different program with the Catholic Church down in Mexico. It wasn't like a long one. I think it was for only like 2 weeks or something.
Right.
But I didn't want to do that at the time, and then I heard about Amigos, and I was like, this is what I want to do. And my mom was all for it, and my dad was all for it, and they helped me a lot.
Families didn't say to you, no, summertime, you got to go make money. They said, go ahead and have this experience.
Yeah.
Also, you mentioned one of your goals was to be able to hablar español muy bien.
Sí.
And that's what happened. Is that right?
Yeah, definitely. I wouldn't say that I was completely fluent, but my Spanish is a million times better now.
Yeah.
Same way for you, David?
I can't say the same.
Catherine, I guess you had a different experience though, didn't you?
Right.
Because you found a different language.
I felt that my Spanish was great after Costa Rica, and then I come down to Paraguay, and the people are not speaking Spanish. They're speaking this language called Guarani. It's an Indian language of Paraguay, and it's basically a bilingual country, Paraguay, and everyone speaks Spanish and Guarani, except for in the campo, in the countryside, people aren't as educated, and a lot of people didn't speak Spanish very well, or they spoke Guarani mixed with Spanish, and they couldn't conjugate their verbs, and it was really broken, what Spanish I did here.
You felt that your Spanish was better than theirs?
Exactly.
That's weird.
But their Guarani, it was a beautiful language.
How did you overcome that kind of obstacle to be able to communicate with them, since you didn't know the language?
Well, we found interpreters in the community, which were the teachers and the community leaders who could speak both languages fluently. And so that they could speak with the people and we could speak with them. We used lots of body language. We learned a lot of phrases in Guarani, and just put ourselves in there and risk not being able to be understood, just to try and show that we cared.
Beautiful line, Catherine. Risk that you might not be understood. And that's what you all three have done. You've taken a risk, and I consider that to be kind of a leap of faith in my vocabulary, that you'd reach out to these people and say, even if they're rather indifferent, David, to your efforts. How did you find the people in Paraguay? Were they excited that you were there? Were they indifferent? Were they scared? What was the reaction?
They were scared, and it took them a while to want to be friends with us and to know us, because they were really afraid about the language barrier. They were afraid that they wouldn't be able to speak with us. They were afraid that they couldn't speak Spanish. They were intimidated because they knew that, you know, they might not have the Spanish, and they felt embarrassed about that. The women there were very, you know, introverted, and they wouldn't make eye contact with you as much as in Costa Rica.
They were shy.
They were shy, and the kids too.
It's the same way in Mexico.
Were the kids, the children, would they hug you? Like Anne mentions that when you arrived, the hugging that went on for you and the experience with the children there in Costa Rica. How were the children in Paraguay?
They were very withdrawn. I mean, the first day I was there, actually it was the second or third day, a group of boys came to our house to see us, because we had a almacen, a little store in our house, and they all came by, you know, to the almacen to visit that, but really they wanted to see who these Americans were living in this house. And I had a lot of colors and papers and things that they could draw, but they were so afraid. In Costa Rica, the kids would come every day to my house to draw, but in Paraguay, they never experienced that before. They never had that opportunity, and so it took a lot of working to get them to do that. And we ended up having to go to the school to be able to communicate with the kids, and it was such a building experience to get to know them, and it was a lot of work, and so then the reward seemed a lot fuller.
Yeah, I'm thinking that maybe what we would have watching Austin Faith Dialogue would be some parents and families and maybe some teenagers saying, that sounds exciting, but it sounds really scary to me. A couple things that I'd like to have you reflect with us on is, if one wants to be an Amigos volunteer, what do you do? Is it training? Do they get you together to help you? Because this is really risky business.
Right.
How do you prepare yourself for something like this?
Well, we had training every week on Sunday for 2 hours, and that helped a lot. We learned about Spanish and just building basics of building latrines and everything. That's
that was
important.
a new experience, right?
Definitely. I didn't even know what a latrine was until I went.
Yeah, and so you'd get some training then.
Right.
For how many weeks did you do that?
Well, we started in November, and we went all the way through April, May even.
You mentioned you did it on Sunday. It really is a spiritual experience, David, right? This whole idea of maybe recognizing that as you give of your time and effort and bring your being, your culture, that you're sharing something more than just latrines.
Yeah, there's definitely, I think the cultural exchange that happens during Amigos is a large part of the Amigos experience. Because that's really what it is. I mean, I think that's what Amigos feel more accomplished about than actually finishing their latrines.
You changed the people there in some ways. You built confidence with those children, and I'm fascinated with children, Catherine. You know how I love the kids, and I wonder about that experience. We do an entire program on the children in
That was the most incredible, the relationships with the children. When we first got there in Costa Rica, I guess the children are different, but they just all ran out and hugged us, and we really felt accepted right from the beginning with the children. And we taught English classes to them every day, and they loved English classes.
Did they want to sing?
Yes, we taught them Old MacDonald Had a Farm and all kinds of songs. It was
Take
great.
Me Out to the Ball Game.
Exactly.
The Eyes of Texas and all that kind of good stuff. What I'm wondering is, how have you been changed? What has been the difference that you see now after, and maybe you haven't had time long enough to reflect on that, but you helped to bring about some change, raise that idea that it helps for sanitation purposes. How have you been changed? Catherine, do you recognize changes in you from the last 2 summers?
It's amazing. You come back and you feel like you're a different person. You can't communicate with your friends and families in the same way. You have to find out where the ground is, where you're standing. You have to look around and figure out, you see your culture in a new way, you see your families in a new way. I know that when I'm there, I really find out how valuable my family is and how important the people are here in the United States to get me there, and how important those relationships are. And even though I'm making these relationships there that are so hard to tear away from, and it's so hard to leave, and I want to stay in Paraguay or Costa Rica when I'm there, I realize how important my family is here, and how important it is to put energy into things like that, and into your community, and to give here also, not just in Paraguay.
And that excites me, because that's what Ann was saying, that because they don't have a lot of the things that we have, and I know maybe it sounds trite, but we have to kind of sort through all that stuff to prioritize what's important. And Ann, you mentioned relationships. How were you changed by this summer in Costa Rica?
I have a whole different eye on relationships. It really lets me see what's important, my family, my friends, everything. In Costa Rica, they would just sit around the porch for hours, for 5 hours maybe one night, just talking with their family, talking to the grandparents and the kids, and they all laughed together and they all joked together, and it was just incredible to see that.
David, how about you?
I feel like I think I grew a lot this summer, because I experienced a lot of hardships, not like physical, but I was rereading my journal, and it was like depressing just reading like how depressed I was, because I felt so hopeless. But we overcame that, and I feel great about it, and I think I'm a lot more confident now.
And I think that's what you've brought back home to us, to your families, to your faith communities. That's what you brought back to the Austin community. And most importantly, maybe that's what you brought back to yourselves, is that sense of hope, that your life can make a difference. And it does. And Ann, thanks for being an Austin Faith Dialogue.
You.
God bless you in the new year at St. Stephen's. And Catherine, you're off to college, and we're going to miss you. New York City's gain is our loss, and God bless you, and come back home to Austin. And good to have you, David, on the program. Hope to have you back again soon. And we invite all of you to find out information on Amigos and be a volunteer, and to experience what these 3 teenagers in Austin have experienced, the presence of God in their lives and the willingness to share that divine spark. Be with us next week on Austin Faith Dialogue, and peace be with each one of you. Thanks for watching today.
For more information, call Austin Metropolitan Ministries at 472